sessions called What I Believe, Awareness, Change, and Loving Yourself. Each one introduces more of Louise's exciting ideas about self-healing and shows you how to bring even more love into your life. Louise has included many of the exercises and treatments from her book for this study course, and she recommends you use the book in conjunction with it. She also suggests you have paper and pencil handy, as well as a good-sized hand mirror. That's important. Play these sessions over and over for yourself as many times as you like, and you'll find that each time you'll have new insights. To gain the optimum benefit, Louise recommends you include friends or family so there can be discussion and feedback. You might want to start a kind of informal study group. Remember that you can turn off the tape at any time and go over an idea or repeat it. That's a good way to take note of or share your own experience as it relates to what Louise is saying. This study course gives you all you need to know to put Louise's ideas to work in your own life. It can be the very foundation for the changes in your life that began as soon as you found yourself drawn to Reverend Hay as a teacher. Here then, as if in a personal, private consulting session for each of you alone, is this internationally known author, counselor, lecturer, and teacher, Louise L. Hay.
In the infinity of life where we all are, all is perfect, whole, and complete, and yet life is ever changing. There is no beginning and no end, only a constant cycling and recycling of substance and experiences. Life is never stuck or static or stale, for each moment is ever new and fresh. I am one with the very power that created me, and this power has given me the power to create my own circumstances. We rejoice in the knowledge that we have the power of our own minds to use in any way we choose. Every moment of life is a new beginning point as we move away from the old. This moment is a new point of beginning for us right here and right now, and all is well in our world. Hello, this is Louise Hay, and I'm here to share some ideas with you, to give you some new ideas to stimulate your thinking, some new perspectives. Let's know and affirm together that we are open and receptive to new ideas and to new ways of looking at life. I've often thought it would be wonderful if these subjects could be taught in school at the very first grade. Think how wonderful it would be if, as a child, you were taught how to think and how to use your mind and how to have self-esteem and self-worth and how to have wonderful relationships and how to be a good parent and how to manage your finances. Just think how wonderful it would be to have a whole generation of adults that knew these things and manifesting these truths. Were you told any of this as a child? I think not. So let's share some of these ideas now together, because it is never too late to learn. It is always the right moment. You see, I believe that life is really very simple. What we give out, we get back. And what we believe becomes true for us. Our thinking creates our experiences. There is a law of thinking like everything else, like all of nature. There is a universal energy or a law of mind or a subconscious mind, however you want to call it. But to me, it means the power that is within me and around me that transforms my thoughts into experiences. You see, I believe that we are all 100% responsible for everything in our lives. Every thought we think and every word we speak is creating our experiences, our future. And it's almost as though every time you think a thought or you speak a word, that universal intelligence or energy is listening or responding to what you are thinking or believing or saying. Now, without judgment or criticism, but totally accepting us as our own value. Whatever we believe becomes true for us. You see, when we are little, we learn how to think about ourselves. We learn what to think about ourselves and what to believe about life from the adults around us. And when we grow up, we have a tendency to recreate in our emotional life the emotional life that we had at home. Now, this is not good or bad or right or wrong. It just means what we believe as home. And we also have a tendency to treat ourselves the way our parents treated us. We scold and punish ourselves in the same way. You can almost hear the words if you listen. And we love and praise ourselves in the same way if we were loved and praised as children. And we also have a tendency to create relationships in our personal lives that were either the relationships we had with our mothers or with our fathers, or that they had between them. Think about how many times you've had a relationship in your life that was like your parents, either your bosses or your lover or your husband or wife. Now, this is not in any way to blame our parents, because we are all victims of victims, and nobody can teach us anything that they don't know. Besides, you see, I believe that we choose our parents. I think that we decide to incarnate upon this planet at particular points in time and space. And we come here because it's like a classroom. We have lessons to learn. You have your lessons and I have my lessons. And so when we come, we choose our sex, we choose our color, we choose our country. And then we look around for the perfect set of parents that will mirror the lessons and the patterns we came in to work on. We choose the perfect mirrors for our work. And then most of us, when we grow up, we have a tendency to point our fingers at our parents and say, you did it to me, it's all your fault. But really, you know, if we are all 100% responsible for everything in our lives, then there is no one to blame, for we are all doing our best. You know, the point of power is always in the present moment. And we need to know that no person, no place, and no thing has any power over us. We create all our situations and all our circumstances by this thinking, feeling pattern. And then we usually give away our power by blaming others. Is this true for you? We all have things that we believe. We have ideas about ourselves. Now, which one could be true for you? People are out to get me, or everyone is always helpful? If you really believe that people are out to get you, then you're going to have those sort of circumstances in your life. However, if you choose to change that belief to everyone is always helpful, then you will find that wherever you go in life, you find that people are there to help you. Now, wouldn't it be better to think that one? We all have a lot of foolish ideas about us. and what we believe about ourselves. And we have so many rigid rules about how life should be lived. But you see, we can't really do anything about the past. That's all done now. And everything you have experienced in your life up to this moment, you have created by your thoughts and your feelings and your beliefs of yesterday, last week, last month, last year, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago, however how far you go back. However, the point of power is always in the present moment, which means that what you are choosing to begin to think right here and right now is going to create tomorrow and next week and next month and next year. The past has no power over us. The point of power is in the present moment, and we can begin to be free right here and right now. We do choose our own thoughts. We may not think so, but we do. It seems to me that almost everyone on this planet, myself included, and everyone I've ever worked with, is suffering from self-hatred and guilt to one degree or another. And the more of it we have, the less our life works. And the less of it we have, the better our life works. It's like the bottom line for almost everyone that I know of is, I'm not good enough. And we often add to that belief, and I don't do enough, and one more, and I don't deserve. Now, if we have a very strong belief in our subconscious mind, which to me is right here in the gut, that I'm not good enough and I don't deserve, then it's going to be extremely difficult for us to create a life that really works in all categories. You see, I break life down to 4 categories. We have health, which is our bodies. We have love, which is all of our relationships. We have prosperity, which is money and all those good things. And then we have creative self-expression, which to me really means getting to do what we want to do. Not what your mother wanted you to do or your father, not what some teacher wants you to do or your husband, but what you want to do. What fulfills you? And it doesn't matter whether it's the simplest thing or it's the most incredibly creative. Now you see, we are only dealing with a thought, no matter what the circumstances. I don't believe in outer effects. If we think that such and such is a problem, then this is what is the outer effect. But really, we are dealing with inner thought patterns which create these effects. Now, I have discovered that patterns of resentment and criticism and fear and guilt cause more problems in our lives than anything else. Cancer is created by resentment that's held for a long time and literally eats away at the body. Criticism that is indulged in for a long time can also lead to conditions like arthritis. And if you look at arthritic hands, you can almost see the criticism in them. Fear can create anything from baldness to poor feet. And guilt always creates pain. Guilt seeks punishment, and punishment creates pain. So if someone comes to me that's in chronic pain, I know that they're dealing with old guilt patterns. Now, all these problems come from blaming others, from not taking responsibility for ourselves. And as I said, if it is true that we are all 100% responsible for everything in our lives, then there is no one to blame. And every outer experience is only a mirror of our inner thought patterns. Now, this is a new way of looking at life, because most people like to think that it's all their fault. it's the economy, or it's our husband or our wife or our boss, or it's because we don't have money, or it's whatever. But really, all those things out there are mirrors of what we think and believe inside. You see, for instance, if everyone is always criticizing you, if you're a person that goes around and says, oh, well, everybody's always criticizing me, then what I want you to realize is that that is your pattern to be criticized. Somehow, inside of you, and you may not be aware of this, there is a belief, and it probably comes from your childhood, that you deserve to be criticized. And so because of your belief and because of your pattern, you pull in people into your life that are critical. And sometimes you can either even attract people who normally are not critical, but because they are with you and your vibrations that you're giving out, you will pull the criticism out of them. Remember, every single person on this planet has every quality within them, including you and me. We are all capable of being a Hitler or a Mother Teresa and everything in between. The other thing about this is if people criticize you a lot, it is quite possible that you are very critical. And because what we give out comes back to us, then the criticism you are giving to other people, or perhaps to yourself, is being reflected by the people around you. So one of the first things I like to do with people when there is a problem is to have them begin to say, I am willing to change the pattern in my consciousness that is creating this condition. I'm going to repeat that because it's very important. I am willing to release the pattern in my consciousness that is creating this condition. This begins to get things moving. The universal power, the universal energy, the law of mind, your subconscious mind is constantly responding to every thought you think and every word you speak. So the moment we make the smallest shift in consciousness, our experiences begin to change. So it's your pattern, it's our pattern. We all have patterns that we're working with. And as I said, most of them we have from the time we're 3 to 5 years old. These are our beliefs about life, our life scripts. However, we can change our attitude towards the past. You see, it's really very foolish to punish ourselves in the now because of some hurt in the past. To be hurt once is one thing, but then to continuously punish ourselves because of it is very sad and very foolish. It's important that we dissolve resentment now. And I often say that to people before we were under the threat of a surgeon's knife. Because you see, then we have to deal with panic too. Now, we have the choice of choosing to be a helpless victim and really believing that it's all hopeless. And the universe will support us in that belief if we choose to. And then all we do is go down the drain. Can you see how powerful we are? Our thoughts create our experiences. If I want to think that I'm unloved, then I will be lonely for the rest of my life because I will prove that by my beliefs. However, if I want to change that into thinking that I'm always surrounded by love and my life is full and rich, then that is what my life will become. It will have to become a mirror of my inner experiences. So what we want to do is begin to release the past, to let it go, and be willing to forgive. Do you know the Course in Miracles says that all illness comes from a state of non-forgiveness, and that whenever we are ill or there is any dis-ease within our life or our bodies, we need to look around to see who it is we need to forgive. Now, this does not necessarily mean condoning poor behavior, because I agree there are many people that behave poorly. But forgiving means to release our stuff on it and let ourselves be free and the other person be free. You know, we understand our own pain so well. But what would be nice if we could understand that the people who mistreated us, whenever it was and however it was, were also in pain. And that they were doing the best they could, coming from the knowledge and awareness and understanding that they had at that particular point in time and space. I have learned over the years that there is only one thing to teach, and that is love. I teach people to love themselves in the here and now as we are. Self-approval and self-acceptance in the now are the keys to positive changes. And this means no self-criticism. In order to change our life outside, we must change inside. At least be willing. You don't have to know how to do this. Just be willing. We'll work on the hows. But remember, and I'm going to say this often, every thought we think and every word we speak is being responded to by the universal energy. So the moment we say we're willing, it's amazing how the universe begins to help us. It brings to us what we need. You see, there is a part of you that is ready to make an enormous change. And this is why you have created me in your life. With the use of this tape and the ideas I'm sharing with you, you have the opportunity to go over and over and over this tape. And each time you do, you're going to find a new idea to work with. And each time you do, you're going to look deeper into yourself. And quite the contrary to what you may have believed in the past, you are going to find incredibly beautiful treasures within you. So let's take our hands together and be willing to look. First of all, we need to figure out what is the problem. Oh, I know you think you know the problem. You know, you don't care for the weight of your body, or you have an illness, or you can't get your money act together, or you're lonely, or you have a relationship that's not working, or many other things, or you don't like your job, or you want to do something very different. But these, to me, are all outer effects of an inner thought pattern that is creating them. And if we spend our time just looking at the outer effects and working with those, the moment we fix them, you'll create another one, because the inner belief is saying that you don't deserve on some level. Now it's safe to look within, and let's do it together. What I'd like you to do now is to pick up your pen and paper, have a nice notebook with you, and on the top of a page I would like you to write, I should. And then I want you to finish that sentence in at least a half a dozen ways. And you could turn off the tape now and do that, and when you've finished it, come back and we will continue. All right, now that you have your list made, what I would like you to do is to read off each one on the list by itself, saying, I should. And then my question to you is, why? Now, this is not to make you wrong in any way, but just to have you look at something in a different way. So you say, I should get up early in the morning. My question is why? And then I want you to look inside yourself to find the answers. And when you finish that, and make a note of the answers so that you remember them, then again, come back to me and we'll go further. All right? You see, I believe that should is one of the most awful words in the English language. Because every time we're saying the word should, we are in effect saying wrong. Either you were wrong, or you are wrong, or you're going to be wrong. And I don't think we need to be made wrong. I think we need to be right, or at least come from a position of choice. Because all of life is choice, and we want to be aware of that. So I like to take the word should and we put it in the wastebasket, or we throw it in the fire or in the trash or whatever you want to do, and replace it with the word could, because could gives us choice. Now, it is true that sometimes it might be better for us to do something, but basically we still have choice. If we don't do it, we're not wrong. So what I want you to do now with this exercise is to reread them one at a time. Only again, this time, I want you to say, if I really wanted to, I could. If I really wanted to, I could get up early in the morning. And then my question to you is, so why don't you? Or so why haven't you? And again, not to make you wrong, but to let you look at your shoulds and see how you really feel about them. So again, you can turn off the tape for a few moments and go through this process. And when you're finished, come back. Now tell me, what do you see? You know, most of us are so strict about our shoulds. They're like such rigid rules in our life. And most of them have to do with things that we either don't want to do, or we don't like to do, or are not us. And we find often when we go over this should list that we have been angry at ourselves for years because we do not do something that we don't want to do to begin with, or that was never our idea, or it was somebody else's shoulds. See, I like to take things off the should list. In fact, I like to remove them completely, so that what we can do is have them be choices. We could do them if we really wanted to. And if we're not doing them, then we probably don't want to do them. And let's not try, let's not berate ourselves, let's not belittle ourselves for it. You see, this one little tiny exercise can show us so much about ourselves. So what can be dropped now from your should list? Now, the next thing we want to do is to see where we are on the ladder of self-love. Now, I'm not talking about vanity or arrogance. I'm talking about respect and acknowledgement for this beautiful being that we are, and for the miracle that is our body, and for the gratitude that we have for being us. You know, love to me is appreciation to such a degree that it fills my heart to overflowing. And I can have love for so many things. I can have love for the process of life itself. I can have love for beauty. I can have love for people. I can have love for knowledge. I can have love for the mind and how it works. I can have love for the miracle of the body. I can have love for animals and vegetation and fishes and birds. And I can have love for the universe itself. What can you add to the list that you can love and appreciate? Now, one of the things we want to look at this point is how we do not love ourselves. And we do this by scolding ourselves, by criticizing ourselves, by creating pain for ourselves, emotional and physical. We don't love ourselves by mistreating our bodies. Sometimes we use food or alcohol or drugs. Sometimes we don't love ourselves by believing that we're unlovable. Sometimes we don't love ourselves by procrastinating or choosing people that mistreat us. And sometimes we don't love ourselves by creating debt and burden. And sometimes, well, we all have so many ways of that. What are your ways of not loving yourself? You might think about that. You might even make a note of it. You could again turn off the television or do it later. Make a list of the ways that you don't love yourself. Any denial of our good is not loving ourselves. And we do it in so many different ways. You know, I had a client once who we weren't even working to release her glasses. She wore glasses, she wore contact lenses, but we were working to release some old pattern in her life that was really limiting her. And one day we had a big breakthrough. And the next day when she got up and she put her contact lenses in, they were bothering her. So she took them out and her vision was absolutely clear. She could see perfectly everywhere. And she spent the whole day saying, I don't believe it, I don't believe it, I don't believe it. And the next day, she was back to her glasses. You see, the universe will back up whatever we say. And when good comes into our life and we deny it, this is an act of not loving ourselves, and we literally push it away. Sometimes, you know, we'll have a partner who is tired or grouchy, and we'll think that something is wrong with us. Or our marriage ends, and we believe it's all our fault and that we're not good enough. Sometimes we're afraid to ask for a raise. Or we have one or two dates with somebody and they never call again, and we think something is wrong with us. Or our bodies may not match the latest fashions, and we think we're not good enough. Or we don't make the sale, or we don't get the part, and we think that we're not good enough. Or we may have fear of intimacy, and so we wind up having no sex or anonymous sex. How do you express your lack of self-esteem? Think about it. It's not that we're bad people. It's just that we're looking at what can be changed. You know, when we were little tiny babies, we knew the perfection of our being. We knew how wonderful we were. You look at any little tiny baby and you see how wonderful they are. They're full of love and they're full of life, and they ask for what they want. They express their feelings freely. You know, when a little baby is angry, not only do you know it, but the entire neighborhood knows it. And yet, 2 minutes later, their smile can light up a room because they express and it's over. They always live in the now. And they reach out and they ask for what they want. They're fabulous little babies. And they love their bodies from the top of their head all the way to the tip of their toes, including their own feces, which they'll gladly rub all over their bodies because there is no shame and no guilt and no comparison. And each one of us were like that. And somewhere along the line, we lost it. Where did you lose yours? All right, what I'd like you to do now is to pick up your hand mirror, and I want you to look into your own eyes and say your name and just say, I love and accept you exactly as you are. I want you to do that now. And just notice your reactions. How do you react to this? How do you feel? What's coming up? Is it an easy exercise to do? Do you feel foolish? Does it seem difficult? Does it make you feel angry? What sort of reactions are you having? I can remember when I used to criticize myself all the time when I looked in the mirror. I remember the endless hours I used to spend plucking my eyebrows to try to make myself barely acceptable. And I also remember I used to be frightened to look into my own eyes. Are you like that? Is this a difficult exercise? Because to me, you see, this is the core issue, how we feel about ourselves. Not what's happening out there, not the size of our hips or the bank account or the fact whether we have a lover or not, but how we feel about ourselves. If we only work on the level of the problem, we are always going to be fixing our lives. Loving the self, to me, is the most important thing we can do. And this begins, as I said before, with no criticism. Do you criticize yourself? Oh, I've heard all the answers. Well, of course. I mean, how am I going to change if I don't? Well, if I don't do that, I won't be able to motivate myself. Doesn't everyone? Or I've always criticized myself. We're not talking about everyone. We're talking about you. Everybody has their own answers and their own reasons. Why do you criticize yourself? What's wrong with you? In fact, at this point, I'd like you to stop and give yourself a little time to think and make a list of all the things that you think are wrong with you. And when you finish that, then come back, and again we'll go on. You will get the most out of this tape and the work we do if you allow yourself to take the time to do the exercises between the explanations. Now tell me about your list. Think about your list. Is it full of too short, too tall, too young, too old, too stupid, whatever? It always seems it's to be a lot of twos. And look at this list and notice, does it go with your should list? Are the items pretty much the same? See, what sounds like to me is that it's not good enough. And here we are again at the very bottom line, not loving ourselves. And this, to me, is the real problem. Now, the next question is, where does this come from? Where do we get those ideas? How did we go from the perfection of a tiny baby who knew how wonderful it was to the feeling of being unlovable and unworthy? You know, I like to think of us all as being like a rose. You think of this flower, this gorgeous rose, from the time it is the tiniest little bud, as the petals begin to open, until it becomes a full blossom, till the last petal falls. A rose is always beautiful, always perfect, and ever changing. And this is the way we are. We are always perfection wherever we are in life. And we want to see ourselves that way, in the here and now. Yes, of course there are things we want to change. We all have things we'd like to alter in our lives, but it doesn't mean that we are bad people. So in order to release ourselves from the beliefs we have about ourselves that are limiting, we want to examine the past. We want to see what these blocks are. If we don't see them, there's no way we can remove them. So we look and we see what they are, what are the beliefs, what are the concepts, what are the ideas that are limiting us, and then we remove them. To me, it's rather like mental house cleaning. You know, all of us have to clean house periodically. Some of us do it more often than others, but there comes a time when you really must clean the house, or it becomes impossible to live in. And I think it's the same thing with our mental houses. We need to periodically go through and do some house cleaning and toss out the old rubbish or the things that no longer suit us or no longer fit us. And the ideas that are positive and good and that nourish us, we want to polish those up and use them more often. You know, it really can be almost as easy as scraping bits of food off a plate into the trash after a meal. You know, you wouldn't go into yesterday's garbage to make tonight's meal. But how often do we go into yesterday's mental garbage to create tomorrow's experiences? Now, the next exercise I'd like you to do is make a list of all the things your parents said were wrong with you. Everything, all the negative messages that you got. Give yourself a little time. Again, turn the tape off and give yourself almost a half hour to really let things come up. Things that were said about your body, things that were said about your abilities, things that were said about love and money and your creative talents and things like that. And of course, I know your parents also said some wonderful things to you, but what we're really looking for are the negative messages that are probably still sitting in your subconscious mind. At this point, when I do this exercise in a workshop, it's interesting how the energy of the room usually begins to go down and people start to get very depressed. Now, you don't have to do that. You can look at this very objectively and just see what the messages are. So you do that now and then come back. All right, I want you to look at that list of negative messages, all the things that you heard as a child, because they're all sitting here in your subconscious mind unless you've done something to release them and let them go. And try to be objective about it. And when you see something that creates a feeling within your body, let yourself say, oh, so that's where this belief came from. Remember, thoughts create sensations in the body, which we call feelings. And then we buy into them and we think that they're the truth. But actually, feelings or sensations in the body are only thoughts in motion in our body. That's all they are. So just look at it objectively and let yourself say, oh, so that's where that belief came from, and realize that you are finding a treasure. Because if you didn't know where this came from, you'd just be operating on automatic for the rest of your life and wondering why things aren't working for you, or wondering why you're always having the same experience. Well, I know why you're having it, because you're creating it because of some belief in here. And that belief came to you when you were very little. Now, not only from your parents, but if we now dig a little deeper, we'll find that it came from other things too. So again, I want you to continue this list and look for the other negative messages that you heard as a child. Now, I'm talking basically about before the age of 10. Things that you heard from your relatives, from teachers, from friends, from authority figures, from your church. Take some time to do this. And as you're doing it, notice your body. Notice how your body is reacting. You see, these messages that you have written down are the very thoughts that make you feel not good enough. You know, if we had a 3-year-old child here in the middle of the room, and each one of us, we would start to yell at the child and tell it how no good it was and how stupid it was and it should do this and it shouldn't do that and how dare it make a mistake and look at the mess it made. And maybe we hit that child a few times. What are we going to have? We're going to have a little child that cowers in the corner like a goody-goody, or we're going to have someone that tears up the room. They will go one of two ways. But there is no way we are ever going to know the potential of this child. However, if we take that same little child and we tell it how wonderful it is and how much we love it and how beautiful it is and that we just love the way it does things and we think it's so creative and that it's okay for this child to make mistakes while it learns, then the potential that can come out of this child will blow your mind. Now, each one of us are always working with a 3-year-old child within us. And most of us, unfortunately, spend our time yelling at the child. And then we wonder why our lives don't work. If you had a friend that mistreated you this way, you wouldn't stay with the friend for any time at all. You wouldn't see that friend again. Though it's interesting, sometimes we put up with it from husbands and wives. Maybe you were mistreated as a child. Maybe you were treated very badly, and that's sad. I'm sorry about that. But if you are mistreating yourself in the here and now, then this is sadder still. So you have quite a list now. Let's look at this list and see, does this list go with your other list of what's wrong with you? I have a feeling it does. The life scripts are based on our early messages. And until we change those, we can't make changes. But remember, all that is done. It's over and it's the past. And if we just go into blame, then we stay victim. And that's no fun. And you get to stay stuck in your problem. Blame keeps the problem. It keeps us stuck in the problem. And understanding lets us rise above it. The past cannot be changed. And the future is shaped by our current thinking. Our freedom in the here and now depends on understanding our parents, having understanding and compassion for them instead of just blame. We want to know that, like us, they were doing the best they could at that point in time and space with the understanding and awareness and knowledge that they had. Blame is not taking responsibility for ourselves and our own creative power. You see, they were just as frightened, as scared as we are. And they could only teach us what they had been taught. What do you know about your parents' childhood before the age of 10? Think about it for a while. How much do you know? If you don't know much and your parents are still alive, try to find out. Not in an accusing way, but just ask them, what was it like to be a little child? What was it like when you were 5 years old? And if your parents are gone and you can't find out from them, then let yourself imagine what it could be like. What kind of a childhood would your parents have had to have them be the sort of people they were when you were little? Understanding creates compassion. You can't free yourself until you free them. You can't forgive yourself until you forgive them. Now, you also had brothers and sisters, perhaps, and if they were older, they may have been like gods to you, and you may have taken very seriously the things that they said. And sometimes they may have considered you a nuisance, and you got the idea that you weren't good enough. Teachers often say things that shape our lives. I remember when I was in the 5th grade and the teacher called us all up and said, "What do you want to do in life?" And I said, "Oh, I want to be a dancer." And she said to me, "Oh, let's leave that to the shorter girls. Tall girls can't dance." And I thought, oh dear. And I put all my dancing aspirations away in my pocket and literally did not take them out till I was over 40. School creates so many interesting things. For instance, you know, if you think about tests and grades, were you really aware as a child that the tests you took and the grades that you were getting had nothing to do with your self-worth? What they were showing you was how much you knew about a particular subject, and that's all. And most of us go through our life reacting to the fear we had as children when we had to take a test and we thought it had to do with whether we were good enough or not. Your friends when you were a child were just as mixed up as you were and had their own misinformation and may have taught you a lot, or they may have said things that were very cruel. You had neighbors. What did the neighbors say? What did they think? Were you afraid of them? Were they friends? Then you think of the ads on TV and in the magazines. How did they shape how you feel about yourself? There are so many products that are sold on the basis of trying to teach you that you're not good enough or acceptable enough unless you use their product. Do you buy into that, or do you see their game for the foolishness that it is? But it always comes down to, where did we get the messages that we're not good enough? And then, of course, the next thing is how to transcend our limitations. No matter what they told us. It doesn't matter what other people said about us. It's how we react to it and how we choose to believe about ourselves. You know, Gerald Jampolsky, who has written a couple of wonderful books, and his latest one is Teach Only Love, said something that I thought was so brilliant. He says, if you want to increase your spiritual growth as quickly as possible, or if you want to get out of a problem as quickly as possible, choose to think only happy thoughts. You see, you can only think one thing at a time, and you can spend your time thinking about joyous experiences. You can love yourself, or you can spend your time what I call griping and grunging, thinking about the past and all the failures and all the things that went wrong and how you're not good enough and how things may go wrong in the future. But that's not the way to create a wonderful life. Loving yourself and thinking wonderful, happy thoughts is the quickest route you can do. So the next question is, now that we've looked at all these things, and we have this list of all the things that are wrong with us, and the list of all the things our parents said were wrong with us, and the neighbors, and the friends, and the church, and the authority figures, the next question is it true? Is it really true? And the answer to me is both yes and no. All these negative things are true if you believe them about yourself. And they're not true if you don't believe them. But you can tell what you believe by just looking at your experiences. You see, if you have a lack of finances or you really can't get your money act together, then there must be a belief within you of burdens and debts. If you're a lonely person, then there must be a belief in there that says nobody loves me or I'm unlovable. If you're ill a lot, then you must have crippling thoughts of some sort. You may not be aware of these, but if you look to your circumstances, you will begin to see what kind of thoughts you have. So think of all the things in your life, and mainly the things that are not working, because that's what we're concentrating on now. This is what we want to change. And ask yourself, what kind of thoughts could be creating these conditions? Some of the beliefs that we have are very positive and nourishing, and we want to keep those beliefs. We want to use them often. And some of the things we believe are no longer appropriate. And some of the things we believe were never true. They were someone else's fears. So the question, is it true? You have to ask yourself, and you'll get the answer by looking around you at your circumstances. You see, our circumstances always show what we believe. I remember when I was a little girl in school once, this memory is so vivid for me because it's so typical of my belief about myself at the time. But I remember that we had a party in school, and it was a gala affair, and there was lots and lots of cake, and everybody had brought a lot of party stuff and things like that. And there was so much cake that when the teacher was cutting it, several children got several pieces of cake. And yet when I came, it was my turn, and I came up for a piece of cake, and of course I was last with my belief system. There was no cake left. And all the children who had cake all the time and believed that it was their right to have cake were having lots of cake. And I, who never had cake and believed that I was not good enough and did not deserve, there wasn't one piece left. It's like such a perfect example of how we create circumstances by our beliefs. You see, if we grew up in a family where we were told all the time that it's all your fault, then we're going to go around feeling guilty most of our lives and probably saying, I'm sorry all the time. If we have a belief that nobody loves me, then we're either going to have no romances or we'll probably have very short romances. If we go around saying, well, that's the way I am, or that's the way life is, that's a belief. And basically, it's perhaps other people's opinions. It's not true for us, or it is true for us, depending on how we feel about it. We always have another way of looking at life. You know, many people get up in the morning, and if it's raining, they look out the window and say, oh, what a lousy day. Well, it isn't a lousy day, it's a wet day. But if we choose to believe that it's a lousy day, then that's what we'll have, because we will create it. If we choose to believe that it's a wet day, then we'll put on the appropriate clothing and do what we do on rainy days. There is no good or bad. There is no right or wrong, except that we make it so. And you know, every culture in this planet has different rules about what those things are. It's what we believe that makes things right or wrong or good or bad. And again, it's the old thing, what we give out, we get back, and usually in double. We want to begin to shift today, to be willing to allow the changes to happen. The point of power is always in the present moment. And all these old things, these lacks, these limitations, these beliefs can return back to the nothingness from whence they came. They came out of nothing, and they can go back to it. You are the power. No person, no place, no thing has any power over you, for you are the only thinker in your mind. I have no power over you. I can give you lots of good advice and lots of wonderful new ideas, but if you choose not to accept them, then you have the power. You are the only person that thinks in your mind, and you create your experiences. And just for this moment, I want you to catch the thought that you are thinking now. And ask yourself, is it negative? Is it positive? Or is it neutral? Do you want this thought to create your future? Or would you rather change? Now, because we think so quickly and the thoughts just go whizzing through our minds, it's not always so easy to begin changing our thoughts. But we can start by editing our speech. Begin to listen to what you say. And don't say anything that you don't want to have be true for you. You know, there are literally billions of thoughts that you can think, and infinite numbers of things that you can say. Make these be nourishing. It's almost as though you're in front of you're going to a fancy hotel, and there's this huge buffet in front of you of all sorts of foods, only this time they're thoughts. And you can pick anything you want. You get the choice of what you want to express. And just as when you go to a buffet, if you pick the foods that make you ill, then the wise thing is not to do it again. Don't be like these people who use tons of antacids. They're constantly picking foods that throw their bodies off and make them feel terrible, and then they use an antacid to try to balance themselves out. It's much better to pick food that nourishes you. It's much better to pick thoughts that are nourishing for you than to you continually think thoughts that create problems for you and then try to fix the problem. That to me is foolish and a waste of time. One of my very early teachers used to say often, there is not something to do, there is something to know. Because truly, when we change our thinking, we change our experiences. All right, so what do we do now? Well, I think we can decide to change. That, to me, is the most important thing. We can throw up our hands in horror and give up or get angry or feel that it's all helpless and hopeless. But this is old and useless ways of handling things. You know, if we think, oh, it's hopeless, so why try? Because at least I can handle the pain and I know what it is. Well, that's just getting stuck and staying in the same old place. And you certainly have the choice of doing that, but you don't have to. And getting angry, well, to me, that's like sitting in a corner with a dunce hat. You know, something happens and we get angry, and something else happens and we get angry again, and then something else happens and we get angry again. But we don't do anything about it. That's foolish. It's a refusal to see life in a new and different way. Do you know that people who commit suicide do so because they won't change their minds? They believe that life is only one way, and they don't want to look in another way or see another viewpoint, and so they leave the planet instead. Getting angry or upset continuously because things aren't working, again, is sort of foolish and wasted energy. What is really better is for you to ask yourself, how am I creating so many situations to get angry at or upset at? And then sit down and really give yourself a chance to think about that. What could I be doing that is creating this? And again, it's not to make you wrong, but just to let you look at what could be happening. As we are discussing how you could be creating the problems in your life, is resistance coming up? Are you feeling resistant or perhaps a little angry? Wonderful. It means that it's important. And at this point, just try to be gentle and patient with yourself and willing to look. Change only comes from within. And we all have layers that can be peeled off. So an exercise to say that's very good is I like people to touch the throat and just say, I am willing to change. I am willing to change. And there are so many ways that we can do that. It's almost again like when you're cleaning a house, you can begin in any room. Doesn't matter which room you begin in. You can start in the bathroom or in the kitchen or the living room or the bedroom. As long as you keep going, eventually you'll have a clean house. And wherever we start is wonderful. And as long as we keep going, we're going to have a clean mental house and our whole life will change. There are many methods we can use. We can use the spiritual methods. We can use mental methods. We can use physical methods. A holistic approach is best. You know, body, mind, and spirit is always so important. The spiritual, the mental, and the physical are all so important. And people begin on many different avenues. Some people begin with the spiritual approach, and then they find themselves working with nutrition. Some people work on the mental approach and go for therapy or work with groups or study with books and find themselves leaning towards the spiritual and the nutritional approach. And some people start with nutrition, and the next thing they know, they find they're in another direction. They're enlarging. They're balancing out this wonderful triangle. I teach many people many things, but I don't teach much about nutrition because I find each person has to find their own method. Personally, my nutritional views are very simple. If it grows, eat it. If it doesn't grow, don't eat it. But just as when you change your nutritional program and you begin to get the junky foods out of your body and put more nutritional things in, you can have what is called a healing crisis. And it is the same thing when you begin mental or spiritual work. As you begin to make changes, as you begin to take like the junky thoughts out of your consciousness and bring in more nourishing thoughts, you can often have what they call a healing crisis. When we start this work, I like to think of it very much like Thanksgiving dinner. You know, you've all had this wonderful Thanksgiving dinner and everybody has eaten to almost bursting. And then it's time to go into the kitchen and clean up the turkey pan. And there it sits, all crusty and burnt on. And it looks rather a mess. So the first thing you do is you put in some hot water and soap and you let it soak. And then you go in, and after it's soaked for a while, you start to scrape it up, and all these bits come up, and then it really looks a mess. And if you didn't know better, you'd think that the pan was totally disgusting. However, if you keep going, after a little while, you're going to have a nice, clean turkey pan. And our consciousness is very much like that. When we begin to do this work, we go in, and we start to clean our turkey pan, and sometimes things get worse before they get better. And we just want to know that it's okay to flow with that. I think mirror work is very important, and the more we can do that, the more we can reflect to ourselves where we are and what we need to do. So keep looking in the mirror and saying to yourself, I am willing to change, and I am willing to release resistance. I am willing to change, and I am willing to release resistance. Now, all of us have to deal with what I call resistance to change. And we all have it, because on some level, we want everything out there to change. But we don't want to change what is going on within us. And yet that is the very thing we must do. So awareness is the first step. And any reaction is good, because it means that change is already in process, no matter how we react to these ideas. But just be aware of what's going on. Let yourself notice it. Impatience, you know, is only resistance to learning. It means you want it done now and not later. Our lessons are not necessarily easy. If they were easy, they wouldn't be lessons. There takes study and time and effort to learn what we need to learn. So don't demand, let yourself do it step by step. Too often we get impatient and we want to do things right now. And you know, we can sit here and say, I want to be in the other room, and we can begin demanding it and insisting that we're in the other room right now. But we don't want to take the effort of getting up and going one step at a time to get to the next room. And we can sit here for 14 days and keep screaming and yelling and insisting that we want to be in the next room, and nothing will happen. But if we take the effort and the steps, and one by one, before you know it, we're there. So just notice what's going on in your body and what form your resistance is taking. How the mind works is fascinating to watch and to learn. And the hardest thing for you to do, the one thing that you keep saying, I can't or I won't, is probably the greatest lesson you have to learn. Think for a moment. What do you think you came to this planet for? What is your lesson? What did you come to learn? And what did you come to teach? You did not come here to be miserable or to be unfulfilled. You came here to fulfill yourself and to give of yourself to others. That's a question that's wonderful to go to sleep on every night. What did I come here to learn and to teach? So now let's look into how we resist, because all of us resist change. There are so many ways. There are many nonverbal things, all sorts of things like we can leave the room or change the subject or do something else or start flipping through a magazine or pretending we don't hear. We also have many assumptions, like it won't do any good, or they won't let me or understand. Or we have beliefs that are part of our resistance, like it's not done, or I can't do that, or it's too much work. And then, of course, there's always them. We use them as our resistance. We give our power to them. And we say things like, oh, the stars of the cards won't let me do it. Or my doctor says no. Or they have to change before I can. Or it's up against my upbringing or my religion or my beliefs. And then, of course, we have delaying tactics, like I'll do it later, or the time isn't right, or whatever else we use to delay. And then, of course, there's always fear. I might get hurt, or what will the neighbors think? Or I would rather die first, or I would rather be divorced first. Or I'm afraid to tell my husband or wife or boss. But they all add up to not good enough. How do you resist your own healing and your growth and your change? Now, another important thing is to leave your friends alone. When we first began to get some insights on this, on how the mind works and how we can change, we start running around telling all our friends what to do. Do you know what's wrong with you? And this never works. The only way we can ever teach is by example. We have to let people see that we have changed. Just telling someone else what to do does not work. Even in my own work, I remember I began teaching a long time ago before I was practicing, and I did not do much good in those days. It wasn't until I began to practice and live that which I was teaching that I really began to help other people. So hold down your enthusiasm and don't run around and try to heal all your friends. Look in the mirror and heal yourself. You will do more good on the planet by doing that than anything else. I remember in the early days when I was doing this work, there was a friend who every time somebody was sick or was in the hospital, she would send me as a friend, as a gift to them in the hospital instead of flowers. And I would arrive with my little tape recorder and all my good ideas, and these people didn't even know why I was there. And most of them were very patient and polite and let me do my number. But it didn't mean anything to them, because they didn't know what I was talking about. They weren't ready, they weren't open to the ideas. And I long ago learned to stop doing that. Even today, someone will occasionally send someone to me as a gift, and I notice that it usually doesn't work, because unless the person is really ready to come themselves, they don't get too much out of it. So again, as I say, let's work on ourselves. I want you to look into the mirror and say, I am willing to change. Look into your eyes and say this, I am willing to change. Are you hesitating? Do you feel that it's not true? You see, when our affirmations don't work or they don't feel right, then we need to go a step deeper. Because always, whatever we have in our life, there is a need within us to have it. And I don't believe in willpower or discipline because I don't think they work. You know, even with a diet, you can have all the willpower and discipline in the world, and you can really be very strong, and for months you may not eat one mouthful of food that you shouldn't eat. And yet, the moment you drop your willpower and discipline, bloop, there's the weight again. Because we haven't dealt with the issue, the core issue inside. There are people who fight fat all their lives, and they never get to the answer. So what we want to do is look a little deeper. And again, affirm. If you're having a problem with this last affirmation, then affirm to yourself again in the mirror, I am willing to release the need for this. We want to release needing the problem. Procrastinating is a good way of needing the problem or holding on to the problem. It's a way of resisting. Resenting another person's good is also resistance to our own work. See, self-worth can open all sorts of doors. And self-criticism only intensifies the problem. We want to step out of the victim class. If we have a problem and we're stuck, and we begin saying, I'm willing to release the pattern in my consciousness that is creating this condition, then immediately we step out of the victim class and we begin to take our own power back and to realize that we are in a position to do something about the problem that we created. When we scold ourselves, when we berate ourselves, the only thing we're doing is scolding the little 3-year-old child within. And each one of us has a 3-year-old child inside. And most of us spend our lives scolding the child. How would you treat a frightened child that was in front of you? I think you would probably comfort it. So comfort yourself too. Be gentle with yourself. Scolding only creates more fear. Be gentle and kind with yourself. This process is wonderful, and remember, you will never go through this particular process again. This is a very exciting time of your life, because once you work through the issues that you're working through now, they will be gone. And they will not come back again. Then you get to work on other things. So now the question is how to change. Now, as we are doing this work, and you have already begun, believe me, there are many changes taking place within you that you're not even aware of at this moment. From now on in your life, all change that happens is for the better, even if it seems to get worse at first. Remember the turkey pan. Sometimes we stir up the gook and it seems to be worse. For instance, say you're working on prosperity and you lose your wallet. Well, this can be part of the positive change that's taking place because something is shifting inside of you. Say you're working on relationships and you have a fight. Or say you're working on better health and you catch a cold. Or you're looking for a new job or express your creativity and you get fired. Don't panic or give up. Try to understand that the movement that is taking place in your life at this moment is what I call divine right action, and it's working for your highest good. All is well. The changes are beginning to take place. Now, what is it you want to change in your life? What sort of a problem or an issue do you have in your life that you want to change? You might think about that for a moment. And if you were in a workshop with me, I would have you do this exercise with a partner. And if not, pick up your mirror again and look into your eyes and say with me, I realize I have created this problem, and now I am willing to release the pattern in my consciousness that is keeping this condition. Let's say it once more. I realize that I have created this problem, and now I am willing to release the pattern in my consciousness that is keeping this condition. And be convincing. Are you really ready to step out of the bondage to the past? Or are you still hesitating? Forget the hows. Just be willing. Remember that universal intelligence, your subconscious mind, the universal energy, is matching your thoughts. And if you say that you're willing to release what's creating the condition, then things have to start to shift. And things will move and things will change. Just be willing. You are much more than your mind. Your mind is only a tool, and the way you have been using it is a habit. And you can change. Anything can change. It may feel a little funny at first, but it can change. Just for a moment, I want you to clasp your hands together. And now there's no right or wrong on this, but just notice which thumb is on top. Now unclasp your hands and clasp them together the other way with the other thumb on top. And notice how that feels. It might feel different, it might feel strange, it might even feel wrong. Just notice. All right, now clasp your hands back the first way, and the second way, and the first way, and the second way, and the first way, and the second way. Now how does that feel? Feels a little more comfortable, a little more okay. And if you do it a little bit longer, it might feel normal and natural. And it literally is that easy to change a habit. It just takes a little practice. You want to know that we always have choice in what we do. We choose our thoughts. And controlling your mind and how you think is harnessing power, because your mind is powerful. Now let's choose to believe that this is easy. If you believe it's hard or difficult, then it will be that. But what it really is new. And let's know that this new way of thinking and speaking and believing is new and easy. Your current thought is the only thing you have any control over. Remember, the past is over and done, and the future is not yet here. But your current thought, the thought you're thinking right now, is creating tomorrow, and next week, and next month, etc. So we want to start being aware and channeling and having a new habit of the way we think in the now. You know, if you have a small child that's, oh, I don't know, 5, 6, or 7, and that child's been used to, for a long time, going to sleep, say, at midnight, and now you decide that you would like to have that child go to bed at 7 or 8 at night. This is the bedtime that you're settling on. Well, can you imagine what's going to happen the first night when that rule goes into effect? That little kid is going to kick and scream and carry on and not want to, and maybe create a tantrum. And if you give in at that time, that child will be the boss of you forever, and you'll never get the new rule instated. But if you are gentle but firm and insist that this is the new bedtime and allow the child to carry on if it wants for a while, the next day it'll be less, and the day after that it'll be less, and by the 4th or 5th day, the child will be going to bed at the new time. It's the same with our thoughts and trying to put new habits in. Gentle, firm insistence, consistency in what we think will make the changes. I'd like you to just do a letting go now. You know, so many times we get so tense and tight and all mixed up about the things we do, and we think we have to work hard for things. But that's not true. We can do letting go in the most relaxed way. So just for a moment, I want your whole body to relax. Let your scalp and your forehead and your face relax. Let your shoulders relax. Have you noticed a big difference in your body since I began talking? If your body is tense, that means your mind is tense. Just notice that. Let the rest of the body relax and be very comfortable. And let's just affirm together, very peacefully, I am willing to let go. I release. I relax. I release fear. I release anger. I release guilt. I release sadness. I release limitations. I am at peace. I am safe. I am me. It is safe to be me. I let go, and I am at peace. It only takes a moment or two. Do this often. Make relaxing your body and your mind a new habit. Doesn't have to be struggle. Just relax and make it easy. It's wonderful for you. Do that every so often. As I say, it only takes a moment, and it's like it just eases all the tension. Now, sometimes when we get upset, it's important that we have a physical release. Too many people get angry and then they swallow it down, and it lodges in the body. And for that, there are some wonderful, simple little things you can do. You can scream in the car with the windows rolled up. It's wonderful. It just lets out all of that energy. Or you can beat the bed, or you can kick pillows and really say what you want to say and then let it go. Just let it be peaceful and let it go. Sometimes we get these things. I remember once, a while ago, I had a pain in my shoulder, and I really didn't notice it for a couple of days, and it kept getting worse, and I thought, oh dear, what is this? And then I said, Louise, sit down for a minute and just think. And I said, okay, pain in the shoulder. Now, what does that feel like? It seems to burn, sort of burning. What does that mean? It must mean anger. And I thought, what am I angry about? I couldn't think of it at the moment. So I got out a couple of good pillows, and I started to really beat on them with all my might and make some noise. And by the time I'd hit the pillows about 10 times, I knew exactly what I was angry at. And so I let it get out, and then I released it and let it go. And of course, the next day my shoulder was fine. So sometimes it's important that we release physical tensions in the body. We don't want to let the past hold us back. That's not the way we want to be. We want to let the past go and all that it means. You know, I've had so many people say to me, well, because of such and such, I can no longer enjoy life. Oh, maybe I didn't get invited to the prom, and so now I'm going to be miserable all my life. Or I didn't get the part, or I didn't make the sale, so I have to be miserable. Or because I'm no longer married, I can't enjoy life any longer. Don't let beliefs from the past hurt you in the now. This sort of thing only hurts us. If we live in the now, in this moment, we cannot be hurt by the past. This is always a new moment. We want to release the emotional attachment to the past. You know, if I asked you what you wore in the 3rd grade, you may or may not remember, but if you remembered, you probably wouldn't have much emotional attachment to it. You would just think about it, and that would be it. And that's what we want to do with all of our past experiences. Just let them go. All right, now what I'd like you to do is make a list of all the things you're willing to let go of. And as you write the list, notice your reactions. And when you've finished the list, come back to me. When you were doing your list, did you notice your reactions? How was your body reacting to the things that you say you're willing to release? And what will you have to believe in order to let these things go? What will you have to change? And are you willing? How willing? Just notice if there's any resistance in your body. Awareness is the key to change. Forgiveness is one of the most important things that we can work with. Forgiveness of ourselves and forgiveness of them. The Course in Miracles stresses that forgiveness is the answer to every problem, physical, etc. If we are stuck in any area, we need to forgive. If we have regret, or sadness, or fear, or guilt, or blame, or anger, or resentment, or a desire for revenge, all these come from unforgiveness. And love is the answer to every problem. But the doorway, the pathway to love, is through forgiveness. There's a wonderful old Emmett Fox exercise for releasing and dissolving resentment that I'd like to share with you now. And if you just close your eyes for a couple of moments and allow yourself to visualize in front of you a small stage, and on that stage, place the person that you resent the most. Could be past or present, living or dead. And allow yourself to see this person clearly. And when you do, see good things happening to this person. Things that would be meaningful to them. And see them smiling and happy. And be aware that you have just dissolved a large hunk of resentment from within yourself. Now, I like to add one step to that exercise. Take that person off the stage and put yourself there. And see good things happening to you. And see yourself smiling and happy. And be aware that the abundance of the universe is available to all of us. Now, Emmett Fox suggests that that exercise be done daily. Well, I would say at least once a week. And keep it as like a lifetime exercise. Because we can always do some more clearing. and some more releasing and letting go. Now, you know, all the spiritual books will tell you that it's important to forgive. And we all know that that's true. But once in a while, before we can do that, that little kid inside of us is so upset about something that it has a need for revenge. And in that case, I find this exercise very powerful to do. Not all the time, but once in a while. Close your eyes again just for a moment and think about the person that you really want to get even with, the one person that has bothered you the most. And think about what you'd really like to do to this person. And then allow yourself to do it. Really get even with this person. And make them suffer in a way that is important to you. Make them do something to get your forgiveness. And then even if your punishment is eternal for them, condense the time down so that it's over now. And forgive them and let them go. And release it. And then open your eyes again. Now, some people find this very difficult to do, and some people get a lot of pleasure out of it. And sometimes that little kid inside of us needs that little bit of revenge before it can let go. Forgiveness is so important to us. And this exercise I'd like you to do with a mirror or with a partner if possible. And I want you to say, the person I need to forgive is, and I forgive you for. The person I need to forgive is, and I forgive you for. And do this over and over and over again, till you really can get all of this old stuff out of you. And if you have a partner with you that is working, which would be wonderful, have the partner say to you, for everything you say, thank you, and I set you free. Thank you, and I set you free. So search your heart for injustices that you still carry, and then let them go. And now that you have finished forgiving the other people, I would like you to forgive yourself. Say, I forgive myself for, and then list all the things you want to forgive yourself for. I forgive myself for. And this is a good exercise to do at least once a week with a mirror to clear out the rubbish. It's like emptying the trash, and you get to feel so much better. Now, some of these things are very easy to let go of, and some of them are like chipping away at a piece of granite, and they will take time. But it doesn't matter. We are on an endless journey through eternity, and we do what we can at any point in time and space. And it's all wonderful. Just keep doing it. Now what I would like you to do is let your body get very comfortable, and I want to do a special visualization with you. And we'll play a little music and have you really relax. Begin to visualize yourself as a little child of 5 or 6. And look deeply into this little child's eyes. See the longing that is there, and realize that there is only one thing this little child wants from you. and that is love. So reach out your arms and embrace this child. Hold it with love and tenderness. Tell it how much you love it, how much you care. Admiring everything about this child, and say that it's okay to make mistakes while it learns. And promise that you will always be there, no matter what. Now let this little child get very small, till it's just the size to fit into your heart. And put it there, so whenever you look down, you can see this little face looking up at you, and you can give it lots of love. Now visualize your mother as a little girl of 4 or 5, frightened and looking for love and not knowing where to find it. Reach out your arms and hold this little girl and let her know how much you love her, how much you care. Let her know she can rely on you to always be there, no matter what. When she quiets down and begins to feel safe, let her get very small, till she's just the size to fit into your heart. Put her there with your own little child, and let them give each other lots of love. Now imagine your father as a little boy of 3 or 4, frightened, crying, and looking for love. See the tears rolling down his little face as he doesn't know where to turn. You have become good at comforting frightened little children. So reach out your arms and hold his trembling little body. Comfort him. Croon to him. Let him feel how much you love him. Let him feel that you will always be there for him. And when his tears are dry, and you feel the love and peace in his little body, let him get very small, just the size to fit into your heart. Put him there so those 3 little children can give each other lots of love, and you can love them all. There is so much love in your heart that you could heal the entire planet. But just for now, let us use this love to heal you. Feel a warmth beginning to glow in your heart center, a softness, a gentleness. And let this feeling begin to change the way you think and feel about yourself. Building the new. I don't want to be old, I don't want to be fat, I don't want this job, I don't want this lover, I don't want this house. We are taught to fight the negative, thinking that by fighting the negative, the positive will come. But it doesn't work that way. How often have you lamented something? Did it get you what you wanted? The more we dwell on what we don't want, the more we get it. Things about yourself that you've disliked are probably still with you. See, what you put your attention on grows. So we want to put our attention on only the best. Concentrate on what you do want to be or have. Turn everything into a positive affirmation. Take I don't want and turn it into I am or I have. It would be wonderful if you could learn to think in positive affirmations. I hate my job gets you nowhere. But I now accept a wonderful new job will open channels in your consciousness and in the universe to bring a wonderful new job to you. Always work in present tense. You never want to say, I'm going to have or I want to have, because that puts it out in the future. Always work I have or I am in present tense. The subconscious mind is an obedient servant and will only do what you ask it to or what you demand of it. So always be in the now. You see, loving the self, appreciating this incredible being that we are, is the magic wand that you've been looking for. And loving the self makes you feel good. Now, you can't really love yourself without self-approval and self-acceptance. And this means no criticism whatsoever. And of course, I hear objections immediately, but that's just the old mind doing its old chatter. Ignore it. Ignore it. I want you to pick up the mirror once more and look again and say to yourself, I love and approve of myself exactly as I am. I love and approve of myself exactly as I am. Is it easier to do now that we've done all these other exercises, or is it still difficult? This is the main issue that you're working with. And if it's easier to do now, then keep going with it. It's wonderful, and it'll get better all the time, and so will your life. If it's still difficult to do, then keep practicing. Looking in the mirror 3 or 4 times a day and just saying, I love you. I really, really love you, will work miracles in your life. I can remember when my own denial of my good was so strong, and I used to loathe looking at myself, and sometimes I used to be so angry I would even slap my own face. And now I look back at those times and see how foolish that was. But at those times, my belief in my lack and limitations were stronger than what anyone could say to the contrary. You see, when I was a little girl, my parents were divorced when I was 18 months, and I had sort of a helter-skelter life. I was raped when I was 5. I got a new stepfather, and I became a battered child. I grew up in the Depression. And by the time I left home at 15, I had a really poor self-image of myself and many, many heavy beliefs to overcome. And it took time. And if someone, when I grew up, if someone would say to me, I love you, my first reaction would be, why? What could you possibly see in me? Or my other thought would be, of course, that classic one, if they only knew, they wouldn't love me. It took quite some time for me to develop a peaceful, loving relationship with myself, and I'm still improving it. You know, this is lifetime work, but what we want to do is get the boulders out of the way to begin with. Begin to hunt for little things that you can approve of if you're with yourself. That's what I did. At the beginning, when I found it very difficult to find anything about myself that I could approve of, I started with my fingernails. or my ears. And then I began with some of the internal organs. You know, it's pretty hard to be angry at your liver. Begin to find things that you can approve of. Begin to love yourself or even like yourself, even for a second. The smallest little beginning will help. 1 second of approval will make a shift in consciousness. We don't have to do it all at once. If every day you could love yourself or approve of yourself for 1 second more, or 1 minute more, it wouldn't take too long to make an enormous change in your life, because this work accelerates and it goes faster and faster all the time. Love, prosperity, creative self-expression, and good health all begin with loving the self. And as we learn to love and approve of ever more things about ourselves, and as we learn to love and approve of even those things we feel are not good enough, then we really begin to make progress. You know, we're always changing, and we either changing negatively or positively. If our thoughts are negative, then our changes become negative. If our thoughts are positive, our changes become positive. I cannot tell you exactly what your future will be like, but I know that if you are negative and resentful and angry and fearful and guilty, you are going to have a very uncomfortable life in front of you, and perhaps illness. And if you are loving and approving and joyous and accepting of others and trusting in the process of life, then you are going to have a wonderful life. And it will be joyful and pleasant for you. And you have your choice of which way to go. Now, there's an exercise that I have given so many people, and it's almost like a miracle because it works wonders. And I want to share it with you. And if you will do this exercise, it will work miracles in your life. For at least a month, I want you to begin saying, I approve of myself. I approve of myself. I approve of myself. And I want you to say this at least 500 times a day. Now you may say, oh, that's so much. But when you're worrying, you can often do a worry thought much more than 500 times a day. Keep saying it over and over and over again. And if a negative thought comes up, just say, oh, I let you go. I approve of myself. Let this resistance pass through. Remember, it has no power over you if you don't give it power. I approve of myself, no matter what. And if you can do that, if somebody is berating you or something unpleasant is happening, then this is a measure of real growth. Thoughts have no power over us. They have no meaning. We give them the meaning, and we can change the meaning. Everything is our choice. I approve of myself. I approve of myself. And as you do this, you will release other people's opinions. You have no idea how many of the negative things that you believe are someone else's opinion. And yet you always have choice whether to believe it or not. As we draw to a close on this tape, I would like to leave you with a wonderful exercise to do. I want you to write down the sentence, I love myself, therefore. And finish this sentence in as many ways as you possibly can. And one of the things you will discover is that it is almost impossible to belittle yourself when you say, I love myself, therefore. So many people have been helped by this exercise. It's very hard to say, I love myself, therefore I hate someone. And it'll help you to change your way of thinking. Allow yourself also to claim the new. That which you desire, visualize it, imagine having or doing or being it. Fill in the details. Feel it, taste it, touch it, hear it, See it. See other people reacting to you, and make it okay, whatever their reactions are. Read everything you can find. You know, this tape is only one step, but use it often, and you will get new ideas every time you do. Practice, and you will demonstrate. Remember, a little child who gave up at the first fall would never learn to walk. Notice the little miracles in your life, and let old things dissolve. Love who and what you are and what you do. Laugh at yourself and at life, and nothing can touch you. Try everything, and then use what works for you. Sleep peacefully at night. I suggest no 11 o'clock news. Trust life to be on your side and to provide everything you need. Life can be fun. Make it so. Even the learning process. I thank you for sharing, and remember, in the infinity of life where we all are, all is perfect, whole, and complete. Each one of us, myself included, experiences the richness and fullness of life in ways that are meaningful to us. I now look at the past with love and choose to learn from my old experiences. There is no right or wrong, nor good or bad. The past is over and done. There is only the experience of the moment. I love myself for bringing myself through this past into this present moment. I share what and who I am, for I know that we are all one in spirit. Everything I need to know is revealed to me. Everything I need comes to me, and all is well in my world. And so it is.
This has been a Hay House audio production. If you would like a free catalog of books and videos offered by Hay House, please call us at 1-800-654-5126 or visit www.hayhouse.com.